I lost my job in a company layoff. That night, my girlfriend pulled me aside at her birthday party and said, "Sorry, but I'm not dating unemployed men. It's embarrassing." Then she dumped me in front of everyone. I stayed quiet. 2 years later, I became a millionaire, and she DM'd, "Congrats on the startup. Can we talk?" I just replied I still remember that night like it happened just yesterday. Everyone at the party was laughing, clinking glasses, and posing for selfies. It was supposed to be a celebration for her. I didn't want to ruin it, so I kept my news to myself. I had just walked out of the office earlier that day, carrying a cardboard box and watching security badge access disappear like my paycheck. Layoffs hit hard. No warning. No chance to explain. I was just out. But when she pulled me aside, I wasn't expecting kindness, or even comfort. I was hoping for a small, "We'll get through this." Instead, she looked straight at me, cold, rehearsed, and dropped those words like a brick on my chest. "Sorry, but I'm not dating unemployed men. It's embarrassing." That was all it took. Suddenly I wasn't just jobless, I was dumped. Not in private. Not with dignity. But right there in front of her friends, like I was some cheap mistake she needed to erase from her picture-perfect night. I remember standing there, still holding the small gift I had saved up for, wrapped in ribbon. I didn't say a word. Just nodded once, smiled at nothing, and walked out. Those next few weeks were dark. I couch-surfed for a while, skipped meals to stretch what little savings I had left, and tried to keep my head straight. My phone stayed quiet. She didn't call. None of our mutual friends checked in. It was like I had vanished. But that silence? It gave me space. And in that space, something inside me started to change. I spent nights teaching myself skills I'd ignored while I was stuck in that 9 to 5. I took on small freelance gigs, writing code for apps, debugging systems, building things from scratch. Most of them barely paid, but slowly, I got better. Then I met someone, an old colleague, who was also laid off. We started something together. No fancy offices. Just laptops, coffee, and hunger. Fast forward 2 years. We had raised funding, built a team, launched a product that actually solved a real problem. People noticed. Investors called. Interviews were scheduled. We hit our first million in revenue before I even had time to process it. And then, right in the middle of a quiet Friday, I saw her name on my phone. A DM, short. Casual. "Congrats on the startup. Can we talk?" Just like that. No mention of what happened that night. No apology. I just replied, "But before I tell you what I said, let me take you back to what happened right after that party." What really went down the next morning, and the one conversation that changed everything for me. Because trust me, what came next wasn't just about getting rich. It was about something deeper, something she never saw coming. But before that message ever came, before the success and the startup and the money, there were nights I didn't think I'd make it through the week. That morning after her birthday party, I woke up on my best friend Jared's couch, staring at the ceiling like it might give me an answer. He didn't say much, just handed me coffee and let me be. Sometimes silence is better than all the "you'll be okay" speeches people give when they don't really know what else to say. I kept replaying the moment in my head. The way she looked at me, like I was a burden. Like losing my job made me less of a man. We'd been together for almost 3 years. She was there when I got the job at the company, celebrated when I got my first bonus, and posted photos of our dates with captions like, "My forever." But when things went sideways, it was like none of that mattered. It felt transactional. Like love only counted if I could keep swiping my card. I didn't tell my parents right away. I didn't want them to worry. They were already dealing with enough. Mom's health had been shaky the past year, and Dad's hours at the shop were unpredictable. Telling them I was unemployed would only stress them out. So I told a small lie. That I was switching companies. Exploring options. Taking a short break. The truth was I was lost. I applied to dozens of jobs the first week. Customized my resume. Wrote cover letters like little love notes begging for a chance. Most didn't even reply. The few that did sent polite rejections, or worse, ghosted me after interviews. It was humiliating. I went from waking up with a purpose to not even changing out of my hoodie until dinner. But in the middle of all that, I remembered something. Back in college, I used to mess around with small software projects. I'd build random apps for fun, just to see if I could. I wasn't the best, but I had a knack for understanding how things worked. I had let that part of me go when I landed the corporate job. But now, I had nothing to lose. So I pulled out my old laptop and started coding again. I'd spend nights watching tutorials, reading documentation, trying to solve problems I didn't even understand yet. My bank account was shrinking, and the pressure was real, but there was something about building again that gave me hope. Like maybe this mess could lead somewhere. One night, Jared came home and saw me on the floor, laptop on my lap, surrounded by notebooks. He said, "You look like one of those startup guys in movies before they make it big." I laughed, but something clicked in that moment. Why not try? A week later, I got a message on LinkedIn from Marcus. We'd worked in the same company but barely talked, different departments. He said he heard about the layoffs and was going through the same thing. We met for coffee. What was supposed to be a quick meet-up turned into a 4-hour conversation about ideas, frustrations, and what we'd do if we were the ones calling the shots. That's how it started. No fancy business plan. Just two guys with nothing left to lose, betting on themselves. We started small. A basic idea, a platform that helped small businesses automate their customer outreach. Most of them were drowning in admin work, and we thought we could make that easier. We called it Loopspace. The name didn't matter much then. We just needed something to work on. We coded in coffee shops, worked out of libraries, and pitched to anyone who'd listen. At first, people ignored us. Some laughed. A few gave us vague, maybe later, responses. We burned through our savings fast. I took freelance gigs on the side, designing websites, fixing bugs, anything to buy us more time. And through it all, I kept thinking about that moment. Her words. Her face. The way she smiled right after she dumped me, like she had removed a stain from her perfect life. That memory pushed me on the hard days. I didn't want revenge. I just didn't want to be that version of me ever again, the one who got discarded so easily. Loopspace grew slower than we hoped but faster than we expected. Word of mouth spread. We landed our first client. Then 3 more. One small investor came on board. Then another. Before long, we had an office, just one room in a shared space, but it felt like a castle. And then came the day I opened my inbox and saw her name. Her profile picture hadn't changed. Same smile. Same filters. Her message was short, like we were still friends. "Congrats on the startup. You're doing amazing. Can we talk?" I didn't respond right away. I just stared at it for a while. It brought back a flood of things I had pushed down. Not just her. Everything. The silence after I lost the job. The whispers at the party. The people who looked through me when I needed help. Her friends who laughed that night and never spoke to me again. What did she want now? I didn't want to assume. Maybe she genuinely wanted to apologize. Maybe she had changed. But a part of me, the part that still remembered how small I felt that night, told me to be careful. Instead of replying, I closed my laptop and went for a walk. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how differently life had turned out. If I hadn't lost that job, would I have ever left the safety of that company? Would I have ever started Loopspace? Would I have ever seen the people around me for who they truly were? The truth was, the layoff had stripped everything away. The job, the relationship, the false sense of stability. But it also gave me something else, a clean slate. And in that emptiness, I found myself again. I opened the message the next morning and typed 3 words. I just replied. But I didn't send it yet. Instead, I remembered one more thing, something I hadn't thought about in months. A voicemail she had left me a few days after the party. I had never listened to it. I found it in my archive and pressed play. Her voice was shaky. She said she didn't mean for it to come out that way. That she panicked. That her parents were pressuring her. That it was a bad moment, and she was sorry if she hurt me. But I thought you'd bounce back faster, she added. That part stuck with me. I thought you'd bounce back faster. It wasn't really about the job. Or even about love. It was about image. Appearances. Expectations. And now that I had bounced back, she wanted back in. I didn't feel angry. Just tired. And more than that, curious. Curious about what else was waiting around the corner. What would happen if I met with her? What would she say now that I wasn't embarrassing anymore? Was it closure I needed? Or something else? That question stayed with me as the days went by. I didn't reply. Not yet. But one night, weeks later, I ran into her. And that's when things got complicated. She wasn't alone. And the man she was with? I knew him. He used to be my manager. I froze for a moment. My old manager, Glenn, was standing right beside her at the rooftop bar, casually sipping his drink like the past never happened. He was the one who'd signed the papers the day I got laid off. No warnings, no goodbyes. Just a cold, corporate email and a walk with security. He didn't even look me in the eye back then. Now, there they were, laughing, leaning in close, like they belonged in some high society magazine spread. I hadn't been spotted yet, so I moved to a darker corner, watching them from a distance. My heart was pounding, not with jealousy, but with something deeper, betrayal and confusion mixing into something I couldn't quite name. Was this the real reason she dumped me that night? Had there been something between them all along? Or did they reconnect afterward, when my absence left space for someone more suitable in her life? The questions kept circling in my head. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but things were starting to make sense. Glenn always had a thing for image. He knew how to talk the talk, shake hands with the right people, charm his way into rooms where people like me barely got invited. And she had always admired ambition. Maybe too much. As I stepped out of the shadows to leave, my phone buzzed again. A second DM from her. Just one word this time, please. I didn't answer. Back at the office the next morning, Marcus noticed I wasn't myself. I told him I saw her. I told him who she was with. He leaned back, arms crossed. You think it was all connected? I don't know. Maybe. You want to meet with her? That was the thing. I wasn't sure. Part of me needed answers. But another part knew that opening that door again could drag me back into a mess I had just started to escape. Meanwhile, at Loopspace, something wasn't right. A mid-level investor had gone quiet. Payments were delayed. And one of our new hires had just quit without explanation. Tension was building from both sides, personal and professional, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to break. And when it did, I wasn't sure which part of my life would fall first. The third message came late that night. This time it wasn't just a DM, it was a voice note. I stared at it for a while, thumb hovering over the play button. Curiosity got the better of me. Her voice came through soft, almost shaky. I need to explain. It wasn't what it looked like. Please. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll tell you everything. Everything. I didn't sleep after that. My mind kept spinning. Why now? Why after 2 years, after all the silence, after everything she said that night? And what exactly did she think I didn't already know? The next morning at Loop Space, things got worse. The investor finally replied, but not with reassurance. He backed out. No explanation. Just a polite, legal-sounding message saying he was reevaluating his position. I could feel the pressure closing in from every side. We were on the verge of our biggest expansion deal, and losing momentum now could mean losing everything. That afternoon, Marcus called an emergency meeting. There's something you need to know, he said, eyes locked on mine. I didn't want to tell you until I was sure, but someone's been leaking internal info. Contracts. Financials. Strategy decks. It's not just a mistake, this is targeted. My stomach dropped. We traced the access logs. It came from someone using credentials connected to your old company. That hit like a punch to the gut. Glenn? We don't know yet. But whoever it is, they knew exactly what to take. The room spun. If it was Glenn, if he was involved somehow, it meant this wasn't random. This was planned. But why? Was it revenge? Jealousy? Or something deeper? And then I thought of her again. The timing. The voice message. The sudden reappearance. What if she wasn't just reaching out because she missed me or felt guilty? What if she was part of it? What if this whole thing, her showing up, the investor pulling out, the leak, was all connected? I had no proof. Just gut instinct. But the weight of it was crushing. I felt like I was standing on a tightrope with everything I built swaying beneath me, and one wrong step could send it all crashing down. And then my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't her. It was Glenn. And he was requesting a meeting. In person. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Glenn requesting a meeting? After everything? After 2 years of silence, of pretending I didn't exist? Something was off. My first instinct was to ignore it, but a part of me needed to know what game he was playing. So I replied with a simple, "When and where?" He answered almost immediately. A coffee shop downtown, the kind with wide windows and no corners to hide in. Very public. Very deliberate. When I arrived, he was already there. Dressed sharp as ever, sipping espresso like he owned the place. He looked up and smiled like we were old friends catching up, not like he was the man who once helped erase me from a company I gave everything to. "You've done well for yourself," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "Loop Space is impressive." I didn't reply. I waited. He leaned in slightly. "I'll get straight to it. I know about the investor pulling out. And I know about the leak." Still, I said nothing. He smiled again, a little colder this time. "You're wondering why, right? Why now? Why me?" I clenched my jaw. "Go on. It's not personal," he said, but the way he said it felt anything but. "This is just business. You built something good, but you stepped into the wrong circles too fast. Some people at the top don't like being challenged by someone they didn't groom." That's when it clicked. Glenn wasn't working alone. There were bigger names behind this, people from the corporate world I used to be part of. The same people who smiled at my pitches, shook my hand at networking events, then laughed behind my back when I got laid off. But then Glenn dropped the real twist. "She reached out to you, didn't she?" he said, almost smug. "That was part of the plan." I didn't react, but inside, everything sank. My heart pounded against my ribs. "She was supposed to get close again," he continued. "Find out what you're planning. What you're building. But I think she's getting cold feet." My blood ran cold. All this time, I thought her voice messages were about guilt, regret, maybe even unfinished feelings. But now it looked like I was just another line in someone else's strategy. Another startup worth crushing before it got too big. "She's not cut out for this kind of work," he added, finishing his drink. "Soft heart. Always was." I felt like the floor had been pulled from under me. Everything, the DMs, the investor backing out, the leak, it was all part of a bigger game. And I had walked right into it. As Glenn stood to leave, he paused beside me. "Be careful who you trust," he said. "Especially when they come back with sad eyes and old memories." Then he walked out, leaving me alone with the noise of the cafe and a storm building inside me. I didn't know who to believe anymore. But one thing was clear, this wasn't over. It was just getting started. Days passed in a blur of sleepless nights and mounting pressure. I couldn't shake Glenn's words. If she was part of the plan, then why did her messages feel so desperate? Was she a pawn, or was she playing her own game? I needed answers fast. I reached out to her. This time, no filters, no hesitation. We met at a quiet park, away from prying eyes. She looked different, not the confident woman who dumped me that night, but fragile, haunted. When I asked her why she really reached out, she broke down. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. "But Glenn, he forced me. Told me if I didn't, I'd lose everything, my job, my family's business. I hated lying to you, but I had no choice." Her confession hit me harder than Glenn's betrayal. She wasn't the villain, I'd been wrong about her. She was trapped, just like I had been. Together, we devised a plan. If Glenn and the investors were trying to destroy Loop Space, then we had to expose them. We gathered evidence, emails, bank transfers, even secret meetings caught on video. The deeper we dug, the more I realized how much power these people had, and how dangerous it was to cross them. The night we confronted Glenn was electric. I had the proof. She stood beside me, no longer the woman who'd left me broken, but a partner ready to fight. Glenn's smug grin faded as I laid out the evidence, his world unraveling in front of us. But just when I thought it was over, Glenn smiled again, a cold, knowing smile. "You think this ends here? You're in deeper than you realize. You've made powerful enemies. This isn't just about business. It's personal now." He walked away, leaving a chilling promise behind. In the weeks that followed, Loop Space faced more attacks, cyber threats, legal battles, rumors spread to the media. But we stood firm, stronger together. My startup survived, and more importantly, I found someone who wasn't just with me when I was winning, but stayed through the darkest storms. Just when it seemed the nightmare was ending, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A text appeared. "You won't believe who's been pulling the strings all along." My heart sank. The story wasn't over. Not yet. The message hit me like a cold wave. "You won't believe who's been pulling the strings all along." I stared at the screen, heart racing. After everything, after Glenn's warning, I thought I had faced the worst. But this text told me the battle wasn't finished. It was just another chapter. I decided to dig deeper, but this time carefully. I couldn't let myself get blindsided again. With my girlfriend's help, who by now was fully on my side, we traced the message back through layers of anonymous accounts, dark web chatter, and leaked emails. What we uncovered shook me to my core. The mastermind wasn't Glenn. It wasn't even the investors I suspected. It was someone I never expected, a close mentor from my early days in the company, someone I had trusted like family. He had been quietly orchestrating everything, manipulating from the shadows, waiting for me to get strong enough to be a real threat. His motive was jealousy mixed with greed. He couldn't stand the idea of a newcomer stealing the spotlight. This revelation changed everything. I felt a mix of betrayal and a strange sense of clarity. It explained the perfect timing of the layoffs, the investors' sudden pullout, the leaks. Everything had been a carefully planned attack, designed to break me before I got too far. But now I had proof. I presented everything to the authorities, and after a tense few weeks, justice began to catch up with the puppeteer. The lawsuit that followed was messy but necessary. Loop Space, with my leadership and my girlfriend's unwavering support, weathered the storm. Looking back, losing my job in that company layoff felt like the end of the world. But it became the start of something new, something I built myself, on my terms. It tested me in ways I never imagined, forcing me to face betrayal, heartbreak, and danger. But it also showed me who was truly by my side, and who wasn't. My girlfriend, once a source of pain, became my strongest ally. Her honesty, courage, and love helped me rebuild. And as for Glenn and the others? They were reminders that the business world can be ruthless, but they couldn't stop me. If there's one thing I want you to take from this story, it's this: setbacks can be painful, but they can also be the fuel for your greatest comeback. Trust is fragile, but when earned, it's powerful. And sometimes the hardest battles teach us the most important lessons about resilience and hope. So if you've ever felt lost after losing something you thought defined you, your job, a relationship, a dream, remember this: that ending might just be the start of your true story. Thank you for listening to my journey. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life tales that inspire and remind us all that even in the darkest moments, there's light waiting to be found.